Good evening, everybody. It is Corey Stewart here in the great Commonwealth of Virginia. And I'm going to do something tonight that I promised I wouldn't do, but there is a reason to do it, and that is because there's so much information out there. And I'm very, very concerned that the wrong person is going to get the nomination for governor here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. There's a lot of good candidates out there, frankly, for governor, and I appreciate them all. I'm very close to some of them. And if they end up winning the nomination at the end of the day, I'm going to be happy, and I'm going to be supporting that candidate. There's only one who I just believe very, very strongly is bad, and that is Pete Snyder. And I can talk about that, and I will be talking about that more tomorrow on my Facebook Live. But today I'm going to be endorsing Glenn Youngkin for governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia, and I want to explain why. I know that a lot of you may be disappointed. You may have thought that I was going to endorse a different candidate, and I can understand why you might think that. But let me just hear me out if you wouldn't mind. You know, since the last several years, we haven't won a statewide election in this Commonwealth since 2009. It's been a long, long time. And frankly, a lot of the big Republican donors, conservative donors across this country have written off Virginia. They don't think it's possible to win this state. We know otherwise. Now, let me explain how we got to this state, this position. At one time, in Virginia, in 2009 to 2013, Republicans controlled everything. We controlled the House, we controlled the Senate, we controlled the governorship, we controlled, a couple of U.S. Senate seats. We were in total control. And we had the ability during those years to build a Republican get-out-the-vote machine, to register our people, to get them out to vote. But it didn't happen. It didn't happen. Instead, there was a lot of infighting. There was a lot of the big money coming from the Koch brothers and others wasn't spent on building a machine to support all Republicans. Instead, it was spent on money to try to get rid of candidates like myself, candidates who were not part of the establishment. And anyway, the result was we didn't do our work in those years. And so now we're kind of behind the eight ball. And we need somebody who's frankly going to be able to self-finance a campaign. And that can't just be anybody, because you don't want just some regular establishment guy who's going to return us back to those years. And that is why I'm going to be endorsing Glenn. Now, Glenn, he's pro-life. He's got the means, he's got the intelligence, the wherewithal to stand up to the woke culture, up to big tech. He's conservative on all these things. I have watched in total dismay as these attack ads have come, mostly from Pete Snyder. I'm confident they're coming from Pete Snyder. It's his style to be cowardly in his attacks and to anonymously attack his opponents. And that's what he's been doing against Glenn and against other candidates too. These negative attack ads coming from these anonymous PACs and so forth that are pretty much, that Pete's behind it. But Glenn has got the wherewithal, he's got the desire, and if he gets that nomination, he's going to have the incentive to build that machine that we need to win in Virginia. And we need it. We can't this is not just for Virginia's sake, folks. This is for our country. What happens in Virginia, got to remember, there's only 2 off-year elections in these odd years, in 2021. One's in New Jersey, the other one is here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And to a large extent, these states, what happens in these 2 states, especially in Virginia, because New Jersey's so left-wing, but it is kind of a precursor of what's going to happen in the next year. Next year being the midterms. And, I believe, can't be sure, but that President Trump will run again, but he is going to be looking to see what kind of gains we can make in 2022. And at that point, I think you will see the president returning to run again in 2024. But whatever, that is why. And I'm going to be voting at my designated location. Now, if you don't know where to vote, just go on to the RPV's website. I believe it is, I think it's virginia.gop or something like that. But just Google the Republican Party of Virginia. There's a link there. It shows you where to vote. There's about 36 or 37 different locations in Virginia. You have to have been pre-registered for the convention in order to vote at those locations, and you have to vote at the designated spot. So given that there's 36 or 37 voting locations, there's several per congressional district, and there's going to be one that's fairly close to where you live. So there it is, folks. I'm going to come back tomorrow. I am going to be reviewing your comments. I do want to answer your questions, but I do feel very, very strongly that we have to endorse the right person. I have nothing but good things to say about most of the candidates for governor, except for Pete Snyder. But please, if my opinion matters here, and if you're undecided, please go out there and vote for Glenn Youngkin. He's an outsider. He's going to be strong. He's going to make us proud, and he's going to allow us to win in the governorship again this year. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a good night.